Good Friday morning, friends. It's so good to see all of you here for the Urban Ecology Center's Backyard Naturalist. My name is Tim, and I will be the host this week, and I'm really happy to be here with all you great human beings. It's June 27th, officially summer now, no matter how you look at it. We have the heat, we have the storms, we have baseball, we have more road construction. We've got red-eyed vireo singing all day long. We're about to hit the cicadas and all of that. Admittedly, it is my least favorite season, mainly because I milt. Yes, I said milt easily, but I do try to celebrate the virtues of summer as best I can. Mostly, though, I'm either in the shade or indoors. And there was a time, and still is a time, when being indoors meant hanging out with your pets, and those pets might have been or might be your own family of sea monkeys. So this is a big craze that started in the 50s, um, along with pet rocks and other things, and continues to this day, albeit it's different. So the other day I was at Washington Park in the offices of the wonderful new building that I hope you have a chance to see or have seen. And so I just did a quick survey of the staff, and they're mostly my juniors by at least a couple of decades. So I was solidly in with the Sea Monkey marketing. I just did a poll of the folks on this call today that I assumed would also be part of the Sea Monkeys craze, and apparently, I for some reason I thought the latest generation would have heard of them least, and then my generation would have heard of them most, but I was wrong. So the younger 20-ish staff, most of them had heard of them. In fact, one of them, my colleague Emily, has even ordered them. Um, and for her, they arrived dead, and that is sad, but you'll see there's an explanation behind this that explains that. The explanation is probably as bizarre as the history behind the sea monkeys. So we're going to talk sea monkeys today, what they are, why they are, and I hope you can sit back and relax in front of the glow of your device as we bring you episode 29 of season 6 of The Backyard Naturalist, The Old Man and the Sea Monkey. Everybody knew what the Old Man and the Sea was. Very few people knew what the Sea Monkey was. And I do apologize that after I created this title and this title slide, I realized that I had already used this theme not too long ago when I brought you The Old Man of War and the Sea. So uh, just as Amanda pointed out, not only are we probably getting close to 400 episodes, uh, Amanda also pointed out that I had repeated the snakes on a plane theme a couple times. So you'll have to forgive me if after we're getting to this big number, there are a couple of repeats. Per usual, I am so glad you're here with me today, especially those of you who are subscribers. I'm so glad all of you are here, but extra special thanks to the subscribers who have helped us with the resources that we need to bring this program to you almost every Friday morning at 9 a.m. And then the next iteration of our Green Spaces Familiar Faces is Saturday, which apparently is tomorrow. And that'll be 1 o'clock. Hopefully I am a familiar enough face to be able to be put into that category. And I'm going to lead a hike through an absolutely amazing green space in Milwaukee County, Cudahy Woods State Natural Area, a hidden gem for sure. And if you want to see what Milwaukee County looked like 300, 500, 1,000 years ago, at least the natural areas of the park not managed by the humans that lived here before European conquest, this is very likely what Milwaukee looked like, most of Milwaukee, with fantastic remnants of both oak hickory and maple beech forests. So I hope you can join me for that hike. And if you can't, I hope at some point you can get down to Cudahy Woods. And then a quick shout out to a couple of my favorite sources of inspiration and information for many of these episodes, including today, the Stuff You Should Know and the How Stuff Works podcast and website, and then the Mental Floss website, formerly my favorite magazine, but now one of my favorite websites. So sea monkeys. To me, and you know, probably to at least some of you, this is the image that pops up when you hear about sea monkeys in your head. Because if you're familiar with sea monkeys, this is what you saw. This is an ad you would often find in the backs of comic books. For me, it was my comic book heyday was Richie Rich and the Archie comics. Um, and it was also apparently for Chuck Bryant, the podcast, who's the same age as me. So I loved reading the comics. I loved reading the ads and all the cool things that you could order in those ads or cereal boxes or whatever. So in addition to Sea Monkeys, oh, so these are my two admittedly um, probably most read magazines in the late 70s. But you could also get the X-ray specs, um, which just seemed so cool, but I never had the wherewithal to order them. I absolutely remember the Charles Atlas ads that always depicted the skinny kid that, got sand kicked in his face, and then he enrolled in this Charles Atlas program, and he gets super muscular and comes back and punches out the bully. Um, Sea monkeys were never something. I mean, again, it was really cool to imagine doing all that stuff, but I never followed through in my desire to get these cool mail order things. And it's the same with like the Dum Dum Pops and the cereal boxes, and if you sent in box tops and things like that, I just never had the wherewithal or the patience to actually go through with it. But it was kind of cool as a kid. It's like something you could do on your own without your parents. You get an envelope, a stamp, and mail in for these cool things. Um, but for decades, this drawing until today, by Joe Orlando, who's an artist for Mad Magazine, another magazine I subscribe to, was the marketing campaign for Sea Monkeys. So they depict these weird, creepy, naked depictions of sea monkeys. Um, and I love that they had to add the fine print in some of these caricatures shown are not intended to depict Artemia. There you can see it on the bottom. This is a later ad, but still the same weird, you know, tails hiding certain body parts. But absolutely, whatever. It's weird, but it stuck. Um, and like I said, Joe Orlando was a pretty famous artist at the time. And anyway, so caricature show not intended to depict Artemia. Artemia is an actual genus for an actual organism. So unlike the hodag, unlike the pet rock, there is actually a group of animals called the Artemia. Um, and actually, I'm going to go back to this one because I love this description, and I love it so much that I'm gonna read this one out loud. Okay. Enter the wonderful world of amazing live sea monkeys. Uh, Own a bowl full of happiness, instant pets. Just add water, that's all. In 1 second, your amazing sea monkeys actually come to life. That's important. 1 second, your amazing sea monkeys actually come to life. Yes, they hatch instantly right before your eyes. Now simply grow and enjoy the most adorable pets ever to bring smiles, laughter, and fun into your home. So eager to please, they can even be trained. So who wouldn't want this? Always clowning around, these frolicsome pets swim, stunt, and play games with each other because they are so full of tricks. You'll never tire of watching them. And raising sea monkeys is so easy, even a 6-year-old can do so without help. Sea monkeys eat very little and they keep their water so clean they require only a minimum care, although they love attention. Anyone who enjoys the company of pets will adore sea monkeys. Best of all, we even show you how to teach them to obey your commands like a pack of friendly trained seals. What a way to surprise your guests. Only $1. And again, I just remember as a kid, like reading that word for word and getting so excited that I could do this. And after you pay the $1 for the sea monkeys for free, you get a 1 year supply of growth food, you get living plasma, water purifier, a magnificent, fully illustrated manual of sea monkey care, raising, training, and breeding, and our famous growth guarantee in writing. So, like, these folks knew how to advertise, especially to kids. Um, so that was again what I wanted, but um, never felt went through with it. If you did order them, um, they would be shipped to you. So you get 3 packets, and this is also important. You get the water purifier, the instant life, and the growth food. The growth food is a trade secret. The eggs are a copyrighted hybrid, and in the version of this has changed a little. The marketing has changed a little, but every time they tried to shift the marketing, like with new Coke, they always went back to that same image. It's like that was fail safe. It lasted through the ages. Um, and it's some versions they would also send you a mini aquarium. The early versions, they just suggest you grow them in a kitchen drinking glass, like a milk glass, or you provide your own bowl. Um, and then what hatched is what brings us to the reason that we can say this is part of the Backyard Naturalist franchise. So sea monkeys are living organisms. They are a species of brine shrimp, and this is a new category to us in the Backyard Naturalist community. So brine shrimps are animals, eukaryotic animals. They're part of the massive phylum of arthropods, which has many, many animals that we've already featured, from spiders to millipedes uh, to all the insects. But from this group, the sea monkeys enter their own unique large group that we haven't featured here, which is the branchiopods, not to be confused with brachiopods. Um, so branchio, I don't even know if I'm saying that right, means gill. Pod means foot. So the name means gill foot. And mainly because most of the animals' appendages, including their mouth parts, have gills. They have gills all over their body. So there's 4 major groups of brachiopods. The clam shrimp on the lower left, which look an awful lot like mussels to me, but aren't related. They're just um, a similar evolutionary adaptation pathway of protection of that shell. Um, then you have the water fleas, or the Daphnia. And if you're ever been in a undergraduate lab, Daphnia is a huge studied organism, as are brine shrimp. Then in the upper right corner, you have the shield shrimp, and in the upper left-hand corner are the fairy shrimp, and the fairy shrimp is the group to which sea monkeys belong. As a group, they're mostly omnivorous. They tend to be either slow-moving, eating algae, bacteria. Sometimes they're like snails; they'll scrape algae off of substrates. They will eat detritus. There is one predatory uh, group of or one predatory species of shrimp that will eat others, but for the most part, it's either plants or dead things. Um, and then if we continue from this group, the sea monkeys are in their own class, Anostraca. So this is the fairy shrimp, and um, maybe the best way to frame the biology of this group is which is a really important thing to do in ecology, is to think about where they live. And this is a group that lives in very extreme environments. So vernal pools is where you can find them around here, uh, places that have water and then dry up for most of the year. They're found in hypersaline lakes. They're found in deserts and desert lakes. They're found even in Antarctic lakes, alpine mountain lakes. So for the most part, this group is in pretty extreme environments. And the why behind that could be the fact that they are pretty slow moving. And I don't know if this makes a difference, but bats hang upside down. This group of organisms swims upside down, and they're slow moving and they're pretty big. Again, one of the reasons that they're useful in biology labs is you can see them pretty well, um, and they're often used as food for aquarists, and so you'll find them in fish stores and things like that. But as a group, they tend to be slow moving, juicy, and so sought after by many predators, um, kind of like rabbits, although rabbits aren't slow moving. Um, so one of the thoughts is that these extreme environments are less accessible to predators. So with fewer predators, these animals can live there. And then one of the biggest adaptations that allow fairy shrimp to live there, while again most animals can't, is their ability to enter diapause. Um, so that's a state of biological dormancy. So their growth and metabolism are arrested, usually as an egg or a cyst, and then this allows the shrimp generationally to essentially wait through the worst conditions. So you can see in the upper photo this adorable fairy shrimp with that is got eggs attached to them, not inside them, but they're attached to them from the outside. And then if extreme conditions hit, the adults will die, but the eggs then can live for what can be a very, very long time, again, in the state of like just metabolic arrest. They're not developing, they don't need anything. They can just kind of be on pause for a long time. Um, so it's this dormancy that allows them to survive the extreme periods of frost in the Antarctic or the extreme desiccation in deserts or vernal ponds. And then from the sea monkey industry perspective, this dormancy allows for shipping from the sea monkey factory to your house in an envelope, which probably only takes a few days or a week. But amazingly, for some species, these eggs can remain viable in dormancy for hundreds of years. So, from a business perspective, what a great tool to have is you can just keep these eggs in envelopes somewhere. And then when you need to ship them, you can ship them and they will arrive viable. We've talked about how tardigrades, my absolute favorite animal, can survive a journey into space. And apparently it's the same for sea monkey eggs. They have been taken into space. And when you think of potential future life in space, if you have an egg that can survive for hundreds of years, and not just in a rocket ship, like in space, like exposed to space. So it could be on the surface of Mars, it could be whatever. Um, but anyway, a lot of potential there. So now you've opened up your mail. You actually decided to order them. You've opened up your mail, and your sea monkeys have arrived. And so the first thing you need to do is hatch your eggs. So you had those three envelopes, right? You prepare the water. You add the trade secret growth formula. Whoops, that gets the pH and the salinity of the water just right. And then you add the eggs, and the eggs should hatch. And remember, they said instantly. So it does appear that they hatch instantly, and we'll talk about the little bit of smoke and mirrors that happens with that later. But you can now start, according to the ad, you can now start training your brine shrimp. You can hypnot. So the founder of this company wrote like a 32-page care book on how to care um, for your sea monkeys, and there's instructions on how to hypnotize them. You can teach them, according to this book, you can teach them to play baseball. Apparently, they love racing against each other. The ad that we just read said you can turn them into a pack of friendly seals. Um, so that's what you got, and why wouldn't you want this? And then, that's the kind of biological basis. Before then, it gets a whole lot more complicated pretty quickly, starting with the fact that when you do buy these sea monkeys, you are not buying a natural species. You're buying a hybrid species that doesn't exist anywhere in nature. It's human made, um, but it is a species. And essentially, the founder of the Sea Monkey Company, Harold von Braunhut, was hoping to build off the success of ant farms, which became popular in 1956. And he wanted to see if he could essentially recreate ant farms in water, the water version. And it's also said that in a pet store, he saw um, the the brine shrimp that were used as feeder fish, and he thought, well, why couldn't these be the pets? So it did a lot of the research. There were two major problems. He couldn't find a species of fairy shrimp that would survive the journey in the mail. Apparently they could survive desert conditions and extreme salinity, but for whatever reason, they couldn't survive being shipped in the mail. And then secondly, he struggled with the right conditions to bring the eggs out of dormancy. So like in the vernal ponds, right? If the eggs survive the dry period, but when the water comes back, the eggs hatch. That's what causes them to hatch. And so his goal was, okay, I'm going to put them in an envelope, and then when you get them to your home, we need to get them to hatch. And tap water doesn't do it. He really struggled with the right conditions to bring these eggs out of dormancy. And he found success when he collaborated with a microcrustacean expert, Anthony D'Agostino, to not only create the hybrid, but the proper mix of nutrients and chemicals that could be added to tap water to get the eggs to hatch and allow the adults to survive. It did not take them long, only about a year. And then von Braunhut marketed what he initially called Instant Life in 1957, which sold for 49 cents. It didn't market well, but over his career, this guy was pretty much considered a marketing genius. 5 years later, in 1962, he changes the name to Sea Monkeys based on the saltwater habitat required and as well as the tails of the shrimp supposedly resembling the tails of monkeys. Brilliant campaign. These things became very popular. I think, again, just about there's many generations that have seen these ads and were familiar with them. In the wild, fairy shrimp only live 2 to 3 months, but these hybrid sea monkeys under proper conditions in your kitchen can live up to 5 years, probably because it's way more stable than the natural habitat. And then a colony can also maintain itself through reproduction, as these two individuals are demonstrating. So just straight up from a natural history standpoint, the story of sea monkeys is interesting. When you add this economic side, it gets weird. And then the story continues to take a strange route when you look at the human side. So again, that in that informal survey of UEC staff, Emily said not only was she familiar with them, she bought them, and they arrived dead. She's like, what the heck? So this jives with what happened to the company over the years, particularly after von Braunhut's death. So the company needed to hold on very tightly to those well-kept secrets, the patents of the shrimp and the formula, because if anybody else gets it, it's done. And at some point they started licensing because they were so popular. They licensed other companies or had licensing agreements with other companies to package and market the eggs. And currently that company is Big Time Toys. So after von Braunhut passes away, his wife still holds the patents. Big Time Toys is a huge toy company, basically saying whatever. Now our agreement is over. We have full ownership. So they're continuing to sell the sea monkeys today. The only problem is they don't have access to the hybrid shrimp or the secret growth formula. So if you buy them today, apparently, allegedly, you are getting a supply of shrimp from China that is not the same hybrid shrimp that has been used over the decades. This company is doing their best to make this growth formula, but apparently it isn't working. And not only from Emily, who said hers arrived dead, if you look at it, the stories, the reviews, pretty much the chances of you actually getting this product working today is next to zero. But if the company is still just making enough money off the legacy, that apparently it doesn't matter that the product isn't actually working. As long as they can still sell them a defunct product or just a product that doesn't work. So you can see, the cutthroat nature and I mean, we could talk for hours on capitalism and all of the things that happen with that. And it's not as if von Braunhut's company itself was like very legit. So he sold us the X-ray specs. He sold us the invisible goldfish, which guaranteed you that you would never see them no matter what happened. So literally this guy marketed selling you nothing. But you got that nice little tank in the water and all of that and these little packets, but there's no goldfish there. So that worked. There were some other companies or some other patents that he patented Balderdash the game, which is a knockoff of what we used to play, the dictionary game, but basically just put it into a box and called it a game. It's a fun game, but basically took a current game and packaged it. Um, he created, if you the the creator of the Sea Monkeys also was the person who patented the creepy eye dolls that the doll's eyes that close when you tip them backwards, which I'm sure many of us have seen. Um, so we can thank him for that. Uh, and for you GIS folks out there, he created um, basically a punch card system of the New York City subway. So this is like before, none of this is digital. This is using punch cards, and you could put in your location into this punch card system, and you could punch in your destination, and then this thing would figure out the fastest, most efficient way for you to get from point A to point B. So it was called the Directomat, and it was a manual version of what now is Google Maps. So the dude was like an inventing machine and very good at marketing some of these products, made a ton of money, um, uh, mind moving crazy fast. And unfortunately, as is the case with many popular folks in our history, like Henry Ford, um, von Braunhut was also had a very dark and unfortunate side with strong ties with white supremacy groups, and a lot of his profit went towards supporting those groups. In fact, one of his products was like a weapon that he marketed. You could defend yourself with it, but it was called the Cayuga Agent N5. And so he marketed it as like, well, you can use this to protect yourself from muggers or whatever. And there was also a strong tie, like the profits of that would go towards these white supremacy groups, and they would arm these white supremacy groups with them. And there's a really complex uh, and unfortunate human side of this famous inventor. And if you're interested in going down that rabbit hole, there is a really interesting New York Times article called "The Battle Over the Sea Monkey Fortune," and I will send you the link to that. It is super interesting. Um, and so, I mentioned that he kind of took advantage of something that was already there, right? Brine shrimp was already used as pet food. Um, it there's a huge aquaculture industry also based on brine shrimp, and so he just kind of took that base that's already there and is still there to make the sea monkeys. Um, and just another quick point is that the to reiterate, like the marketing, he was a marketing genius. It was really when he initially tried to market this instant life, um, it was it was not well received, and some big places like Sears Roebuck that ordered them ended up getting people fired because it was just, why would you buy these? It was when he went directly to the kids, directly to me, in the comic books, and two-page inserts in these comic books. At the height of that, they were putting in 150 million issues of comic books per year. That's when this thing took off. Um, and then the other bit of marketing genius, and I'm going to go back to the slide. Um, so you see there's three packets here, right? So there's the water purifier, there's the instant life, and there's growth food, and you're supposed to do them in a certain order, starting with the water purifier. But then you're actually supposed to put in the growth food next. And in that growth food, there is eggs. And those eggs start to hatch, but it's not instantly. Remember, he's calling this instant life. Like they're going to, as soon as you hit water, you're going to get life. So the sleight of hand here is that that second packet actually has eggs in it, but they don't tell you that. And so it gives you some time for the eggs to grow and develop, but they're so tiny, when they first hatch, they're very tiny and you don't really see them. You could see them if you had a microscope. But then just when they get to the the size where you could start to see them, you add the eggs. And in the egg packet, there are eggs, but there's also a dye. And as soon as that hits the water, uh, they basically dye the current larva, current life, uh, current growth forms. And so it really literally does become instant that when you add that third packet, all of a sudden you see the sea monkeys. So it's a sleight of hand, a brilliant sleight of hand, but it worked. And smoke and mirrors at its finest. Um, so that's that's the Artemia shrimp, known as sea monkeys. Um, they're only born with one eye. They develop a second eye later. Again, they breathe through their feet. They don't live in the sea. They're not monkeys, but they tell a great story, primarily because of their natural ability to live in extreme environments like the U.S. Postal Service. So, thank you for joining me today, and I will stop sharing my screen.